It was the dead of winter, 1887, and the moon hung low and mean over the San Pedro Valley, spilling cold silver across the frostbitten desert. I was holed up in an old trading postern cabin just shy of Fort Bowie. Just me, a pot-bellied stove that hissed like snake, and the wind gnawing at the corners of the world like a hungry coyote. I weren't much for company back then. Had too many ghosts tapping at my window already. Figures from old wars, old regrets, old bottles. The kind of solitude a man settles into like a grave he's not quite ready to dig. Then came the knock. 3 taps, soft, hesitant, but sharp as a blade against the night. I sat still for a moment, wondering if the wind was playing tricks. But then it came again. 3 times. No more, no less. Like a signal. I took up my rifle and crept to the door. The fire popped behind me, casting long shadows like claws across the walls. I opened it slow, barrel first, expecting maybe a drunk trapper or a hungry traveler. Instead, there she stood, an Apache woman, not much older than 25, shivering in a thin doeskin shawl already heavy with snow. Her cheeks were streaked with tears, eyes dark as obsidian, and sharp with something I couldn't quite name. Fear, maybe, or fury, or some dangerous mix of both. "Let me in," she whispered, her voice hoarse and ragged. "I'll reward you." Now, I weren't fool enough to believe such things come without trouble. She looked like she'd run far and hard, and the kind of folks who send a woman out like that in the middle of a desert winter ain't ones to trifle with. But her lips were blue, and her hands were raw, and Lord help me, I was still a man with some blood left in his heart. "Come on," I said, lowering the rifle. "Fire's hot." She stumbled in, near to collapse, and I shut the door behind her just as the wind howled again, angrier this time, like it knew it had been cheated. I helped her to the fire. She didn't speak, didn't thank me, just stretched out her hands, letting the heat chase the frost from her fingers. I fetched her a cup of coffee, thin as it was, and a slice of jerky. She took them both like they were manna from heaven. We sat there in silence, the kind that presses against your ears. Finally, I asked, "You got a name?" She stared into the flames. "Sonny," she said, barely above a whisper. "My name is Sonny." "Where you from?" She didn't answer right off. Instead, she pulled something from beneath her shawl, a small bundle wrapped in leather, tied with sinew. She held it tight, like it was the only thing keeping her tethered to the world. "They're coming," she said. "Who?" Sonny looked up, and for the first time I saw it, pure, bone-deep desperation, the kind that sits under your skin like a fever. "Soldiers," she said, "men with no law but their own. They killed my brother. They took everything else." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. Fort Bowie was just over the ridge, and there was a patrol stationed there that didn't rightly care for the finer points of justice, especially not when it came to Apache folk. "You got any weapons?" I asked. She shook her head. "Only this." She unwrapped a bundle, slow and careful. Inside was a stone knife, old ceremonial, but the edge was wicked sharp. Alongside it, a strip of parchment with symbols drawn in red clay and charcoal. "This is what they want," she said. I took the paper, squinting at the symbols. Didn't make no sense to me, but I could feel it humming with some kind of importance. "Why bring it here?" Sonny met my eyes, her voice steady now. "Because I was told there was a white man who lived alone in the hills. A man with blood on his hands, but honor in his heart. A man who owed a debt to the Apache." She looked at me like she already knew who I was. What I'd done. Maybe she did. "My father saved your life once," she said. 10 winters ago. He dragged you from the Salt River, half drowned and shot." I remembered that night like a fever dream. I'd been caught in a skirmish between settlers and a group of Apache scouts. Thought I was done for until a man pulled me from the water and vanished before I could speak his name. "That was your pa?" I asked, voice thick. She nodded. "You said you'd repay the debt." I stared at the fire. My past had long teeth, and they were catching up quick. I reckon I did. Outside, the wind shifted. Not just wind now, hooves. Distant but coming fast. Maybe half a dozen riders. Maybe more. I stood, checked my rifle. "Get to the cellar," I told her. Take that bundle with you. Don't come out till I say." Sonny rose without a word, her eyes full of something fierce and unbroken. I watched her vanish down the narrow cellar steps, then turned to the door, my hand resting on the latch. The knock had come at midnight, and by dawn, blood would surely follow. The knock had barely faded when I heard the hooves, fast and angry, like wolves with iron shoes. They kicked up the dust and frost with a vengeance, galloping across the hard-packed earth like they owned the night. I pulled the rifle from its hooks above the hearth, checked the chamber, and stepped out onto the porch. There were 5 of them, just as I feared. Dust-gray coats, kerchiefs pulled high, rifles slung casual over their shoulders, like they weren't here for talking. Their leader wore a blue cavalry jacket, the brass buttons dulled and tarnished, like he'd taken it off a corpse and wore it proud. "You Barnes," he called out. The name landed like a hammer. Hadn't heard it spoken in years. "Used to be," I replied. He nudged his horse forward, boots creaking. "We're looking for an Apache woman. Came this way about an hour ago. Short, dark hair. Might have been carrying a bundle." "Don't know nothing about that," I lied. "Ain't seen no one but the snow." His eyes narrowed. "This land's full of Apaches. They crawl out of the rocks. But this one ain't like the rest. She's carrying something don't belong to her. Some kind of map. You hand her over, we'll be on our way." I felt the paper burning in my pocket, that parchment of hers humming, like a snake about to strike. "You fellas got a warrant?" I asked. They laughed dry, humorless. The kind of laugh men give when they've already made up their minds. "Ain't the law," said the leader. "We're something else." That's when I saw the mark on his saddlebag, a crude symbol stitched in red thread, a vulture perched on a broken cross. I'd seen it before. Once. They weren't soldiers. They were bounty men, mercenaries out of Yuma who'd been chasing Apache gold and ghost stories for years. Ruthless men who weren't after justice. They were after whatever Sonny was carrying. I stepped down off the porch, slow and easy. "Best turn around," I said. "Storm's coming, and you're on land that ain't friendly to buzzards." The leader gave a tight grin. "Then I guess we'll make it friendly." His hand twitched toward his holster, but mine moved faster. The crack of my rifle echoed through the valley like thunder on a dry plain. He went down, hard, blood bloom on his jacket like a busted pomegranate. The other 4 shouted, horses rearing. I dove behind the well pump, working the lever action smooth as butter. The second shot clipped a rider's shoulder, sending him tumbling into the dirt with a yelp. Bullets whipped through the air. Che went up the porch, smashing the windows. I stayed low, keeping count. 3 left, scattered now. But desperate men shoot wild. Then I heard the hatch creak. Sonny. I turned just in time to see her crouched by the edge of the cellar, that stone knife in her hand, eyes wide with fire. "Stay down," I barked. But she didn't listen. She moved like a shadow, low and fast, slipping behind the nearest outbuilding. The bounty men hadn't seen her yet, but one of them had dismounted, rifle up, creeping toward the shed. I circled around, silent on the frostbit ground. When he stepped past the corner, I cracked his head with the butt of my rifle. He dropped without a sound. 2 left. The last pair regrouped behind my barn, tacking shots through the cracks in the wall. I could hear their breath, ragged and panicked, their boots crunching hay. I flanked him from the rear, caught him mid-reload. "You boys lost." I growled. One spun too slow. My boot met his gut, and he folded like a bad poker hand. The other dropped his rifle and raised his hands. "I don't want no trouble." "You found it anyhow." Before I could decide what to do, Sonny appeared behind me, knife still in hand. Her face was cut, blood mixed in, with the dust on her cheeks. "He'll bring more," she said. "They always bring more." I believed her. I looked down at the last man standing. He was young, eyes wide with terror. "Tell your friends," I said. "This valley's under guard now. You come again, you won't leave walking." He nodded, hand shaking, and I let him go. When he was gone, and the valley was quiet again, I turned to Sonny. The sky was tinning gray, snow starting to fall soft and slow. "You said you'd reward me," I said, half a grin on my lips. That's still true. She looked at me, and for the first time, her mouth curved into something that might have been a smile. I'll tell you what's on that map, she said, and why men are dying for it. That night, the wind died down to a whisper, like even the desert was holding its breath. I patched what damage I could, shuttered the busted windows, swept out the blood, stoked the fire, till the cabin glowed like a lantern in the dark. Sonny sat across from me, her bundle laid open between us. That stone knife gleamed dully in the firelight, and beside it, the parchment map. You said it's what they're after, I said, eyeing the symbols. What is it? She leaned forward, her voice low, like she didn't want the shadows listening. It's a route, she said, an old trail carved by my grandfather's grandfather. It leads through the Superstition Mountains, to a place no white man's ever set foot. I frowned. You talking about the lost mine? She nodded. But not the one your stories tell. The gold ain't cursed. The curse is what men do trying to claim it. I'd heard tales since I was a boy. Stories of Apache's garden, a canyon lined with gold veins, so pure they bled like sunlight. Every few years, someone goes sear chin and never come back. I always figured it was desert madness or a hungry cougar. But Sonny's eyes, they said otherwise. My father was a keeper, she said, one of a line chosen to protect the trail. But greed found him. A white trader, Jack Hollis, wormed his way in with gifts and lies. My father showed him a piece of the path, thinking he could make peace. That's when everything changed. Her hands trembled just slightly. The trader brought others, men with guns and picks. They ambushed our camp. My father died standing over this map. My brother died getting me out. I felt my jaw tighten. And those men out there tonight? Hollis's men, she said. They've been following me since Tucson. They know I have the map. They want it, and they'll keep coming. I stared into the fire, letting the silence fill up like a grave. I'd seen what gold did to men. Didn't matter if it was a nugget or a legend. It burned through folks faster than a prairie fire in July. You could burn it, I said. I could, she agreed. But then they'd never stop looking. They'd think I buried it, or lied. The only way to end it is to finish the journey. Take the map to the elders. Let them decide what happens next. You mean to go into the superstitions? She looked at me with calm certainty. At dawn, I rubbed my face. I'd fought in skirmishes, rode with the Rangers once, buried more friends than I cared to count, but nothing about following an Apache woman into cursed gold country made any kind of sense. So naturally I said, "Then I ride with you." Her eyes didn't widen in surprise. She just nodded like she already knew I would. We slept in shifts that night. She curled by the hearth with her bundle clutched close, and I sat by the window, rifle across my lap. Every creak of the floorboards or snap of the wind made me twitch, but the night held. By dawn, we were packed and mounted, her on my old dun mare, me on a rangy Mustang I kept for hunting. The desert stretched out in all directions, painted in the pink and orange of a sunrise that didn't care a whit about our troubles. We rode south first, toward Bowie, then cut west through a wash near Mule Ridge to throw off any trackers. The superstitions lay 2 days beyond if the weather held and the water didn't run dry. By midday, we passed through a canyon, so narrow the horses had to go single file. That's where we found the first sign we weren't alone. A carcass, half a deer, half a warning, hung from a twisted juniper, gutted and left to rot. Flies buzzed thick around it. Sonny didn't even blink. They're close. That night, we made camp in a hollow shaded by mesquite. I built the fire low, the smoke barely a whisper. Sonny sat opposite, her eyes reflecting the flames like twin coals. You ever think about leaving the map behind? I asked. She shook her head. If I run, they'll chase me. If I fight, more will follow. But if I finish what my father started, maybe that ends it. There was something in her voice, something older than grief, heavier than vengeance. Duty. You said your father saved my life once, I murmured. I don't remember much. Just a hand pulling me from the water. He said you were a good man, she replied. Said you fought not because you hated, but because you didn't know another way. That cut deep, 'cause it was true. Maybe I still don't, I said. She gave a faint smile. Then maybe I can show you. We didn't speak again that night, but the silence between us, it felt like the beginning of something. By the time we reached the mouth of Apache Gulch, the sun had climbed high and cruel, burning down on the trail like judgment. The map Sonny carried guided us through a web of dry ravines and ancient rock carvings that seemed to watch us pass. Wind stirred the sand in low, sighing breaths, as if the land itself was restless. We rode in silence for a while, each of us lost in our own reckonings. My eyes scanned the horizon, watching for movement, while hers stayed fixed on the ridges above, where danger always found its perch. Around mid-afternoon, Sonny pulled her mare to a stop. "There," she said, pointing to a formation of red rock stacked like fallen dominoes. "Canyon of Bones." I'd heard of the place. Old-timers said it was where warriors once made their last stand against cavalry in a blood-soaked battle that left the sand thirsty for decades. Bones still turned up after storms, they claimed. Skulls that whispered in the wind. We dismounted and moved on foot, leading the horses through a crack in the stone, just wide enough for a man with no fear. The path dipped steep, and soon the light narrowed until we moved in shadow. The canyon opened into a hollow shaped like a bowl. At its heart lay a circle of standing stones, worn smooth by time. Sonny approached M like a priestess at a shrine, touching one gently with her fingertips. "This is where the trail ends," she said. "The map leads here and no farther." I stepped beside her. "So where's the gold?" She shook her head. "It's not gold. It's what my people left behind. A promise, buried to keep the world from destroying itself over it." She knelt and brushed aside the sand at the base of the tallest stone. A faint etching revealed itself, jagged symbols older than memory. "It's a warning," she murmured. Then we heard it, hoofbeats. Faint but drawn closer. I snapped my rifle up, moving to the edge of the hollow. From the north, riders emerged. 3 of them, same buzzards from the cabin, come sniffing around for what they didn't earn. Hollis must have sent more when the others failed. Sonny stood tall now, shoulders squared. "No more running," she said. I chambered around. "Then let's show M what happens when they chase ghosts." The first rider didn't even see the shot coming. My bullet caught him in the chest and dropped him clean. The second wheeled around, firing wild, his shot pinging off the stone near my head. Sonny moved like a shadow, disappearing behind the rocks. The third rider dismounted and came in crouched, rifle drawn, eyes cold. He was younger, with a face that still had innocence trying to hang on, but his hands were steady, and his boots didn't make a sound. I flanked left, leading him around the circle, buying time. Then Sonny struck. She came from the blind side, her stone blade flashing. The young man turned just in time to see her coming, but too late to stop it. She sliced across his thigh, dropping him to the dust. He howled, more from shock than pain. I reached him before he could get his bearings, my boot on his rifle. "Who sent you?" I asked. He spat blood. "Hollis wants what's hers." "Hers? The gold, the land, the story. It don't matter. She's got something the world will kill to own." I glanced at Sonny. Her face was unreadable. "You want to live?" I asked him. He nodded. "Then ride home. Tell Hollis if he wants this. He'd best come himself." I let him crawl to his horse. He rode off, leaving a streak of blood behind. That night, we didn't make a fire. We sat beneath the stars, wrapped in blankets, sharing dry rations and thoughts too heavy for words. "You could leave now," Sonny said, breaking the quiet. "You've done more than enough." I looked at her, at the firelight caught in her eyes, and the scars hid beneath her calm. "I reckon I'll stay," I said, "debt or no debt." She nodded slow. "Then tomorrow we bury the map." "You sure?" She stared up at the sky. "If we don't, more will come, and they'll keep coming, till there's nothing left of this land but blood and greed." And in that moment, I saw what her reward truly was: peace. Not riches, not vengeance, just the end of a hunt that never should have begun. Dawn rose slow over the Superstition Mountains, light spilling gold across jagged stone and blood-streaked memories. Me and Sonny stood at the edge of the hollow, the map gripped in her hands, the stone knife at her belt. It felt like the kind of morning where something ends and something worse begins. We dug with our hands, careful, respectful. At the base of the central monolith, beneath the eye of the canyon, we laid the map. Sonny wrapped it in leather, bound it with sinew, and pressed it down into the earth. "Let it sleep," she whispered. We covered it, tamped the dirt firm, and laid a flat stone atop the grave. Not a treasure, not a prize, just a secret the world wasn't ready for. I stood and dusted my palms. "Now what?" She didn't answer, just looked east. That's when we heard it. Not the beat of hooves this time. Wheels. A wagon. Rolling fast over stone and brush, its rickety frame creaking like an old man's knees. A cloud of dust rose behind it. I grabbed my rifle and climbed to the ridge. What I saw made my stomach turn. A stagecoach, an old military surplus one, reinforced with iron, and 6 men riding alongside it. And up front, reining it in with a lazy grip and a cigar clamp between his teeth, was Jack Hollis. The man was thick in the gut, with a gray beard trimmed sharp and a revolver at each hip. His coat was too fine for this place, black velvet, gold trim, like he thought himself royalty. I turned to Sonny. "He's here." She didn't flinch. He always would be. We didn't run. We just waited. The coach rolled to a stop at the canyon's mouth. Hollis dismounted slow, chewing the stub of his cigar. "Well," he called out, voice drawling smooth as snake oil. I half expected you to vanish, girl, or wind up dead in some arroyo. But here you are, handing me my inheritance." I stepped into view. "Ain't yours." His eyes narrowed. "Barnes, thought you'd crawled off somewhere to die." "Thought about it," I said. "Didn't take." He chuckled, but it was hollow. "Let's not waste time," he said. "I want the map. You give it to me, and maybe I let you both walk away." Sonny stepped forward. "It's gone." Hollis stopped grinning. "Gone. Buried," she said. "Hidden in the earth, like it should have been." One of his men shifted in the saddle, but Hollis held up a hand. "Don't bluff me, girl. That map's worth more than gold. That's a route to salvation. You think I give a damn about superstition? About some tribal curse?" I raised my rifle. "You should." He stared at me, and for a moment, the canyon held its breath. Then he said, "You got no idea what's coming. I got investors waiting. I got money in this, real money. And you're a nobody." I chambered around. "She's the reason you're still breathing. Don't push it." But Hollis wasn't listening anymore. He signaled, and all hell broke loose. Shots rang out. Horses screamed. I dropped to a knee and fired twice. Hit a man clean through the collarbone. Saw him tumble from the saddle. Sonny vanished into the rocks, moving fast, drawing fire away. Hollis ducked behind the coach, shouting orders. I kept firing, keeping them pinned, but they were better armed. One got a bead on me from high ground, and a round clipped my shoulder. Burned like fire, but I held my ground. Then I heard it, that stone blade whistling through air. Sonny was on Em like a storm. She dropped from above, landing on one of Hollis's men, her knife slicing clean. He went down before he could scream. I pushed forward, using the moment. Hollis turned, drawing one of his pistols. He got the shot off. The bullet caught me in the side, knocking the wind clean out of me. But I still pulled the trigger. My shot hit him in the thigh. He dropped to the ground, screaming, blood pouring through his fine trousers. Sonny stood over him, breathing hard. Her blade hovered near his throat. "Please," he gasped. "You don't know what you're doing." "That map." She knelt, her voice cold. "That map belonged to my father. The land it marks belonged to my people. And you." She pressed the blade just hard enough to make him bleed. "You belong to the past." But she didn't kill him. She stood and walked away. Me, I limped after her, blood soaking my shirt. We didn't speak until long after the canyon was silent again. "You let him live," I said. She nodded. "So he can remember who spared him. So the world can know what he tried to take." And the way she said it, I believed it would. We rode north that night under a blanket of stars that didn't seem to blink. The kind of night where the desert feels like the bottom of the ocean, still, heavy, and listening. I bled slow and steady, pressure wrapped in a strip of Sani's shawl. She'd made it tight, clean, and fast, like someone who'd patched wounds more times than she cared to count. We didn't speak much. Words felt too loud for the dark. By sunup, we reached a ridge overlooking a shallow basin lined with brittle grass and sun-split stone. A stream wound lazy through it, barely more than a ribbon of silver. Sani stopped and looked out across the valley. "This is where my mother died," she said. "Same year the treaty was signed. Same year they sent us east to learn to be better." She dismounted slow, knees stiff. "She fought them?" I asked. "She tried, but they'd already stolen everything by then, her voice, her name, even the right to say goodbye to her own father. When they left her, she was more spirit than woman. She came here to disappear." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. Sometimes the past ain't a story. It's a scar you don't notice, till someone shows you theirs. She walked to a flat rock half buried in the soil and began to dig with her hands. "What are you doing?" I asked. She pulled up a bundle wrapped in hide. Inside, a second map, older, flaked around the edges like old leaves, a necklace made of red shell and turquoise, and a small pouch that smelled like cedar and smoke. "It's tradition," she said, "to leave something behind when you go where spirits rest, and to carry something forward." She took the necklace and tied it around her neck, then handed me the pouch. "For protection," she said. I opened it. Inside was a pinch of ashes. "Your mother." She nodded. "You've carried death long enough. Now you carry someone's hope." That near knocked the wind out of me. We camped under a mesquite that night, the sky painted with fire as the sun dipped low. I was still sore, still slow, but better than I had any right to be. Sani cooked prickly pear pads over the fire, softened with dry beans, and whatever spices she kept tucked in her satchel. We ate in peace. "You think Hollis will come again?" I asked. "No," she said. "He'll lick his wounds and twist the truth. Say we attacked him. Say the land's cursed. Men like that don't give up, but they don't return to where they're beat." I looked into the fire. "You ever think about leaving? Starting fresh somewhere?" "I did," she said, "but I realized something. My home ain't gone. It's just buried. Not like treasure. More like roots. You don't leave roots. You grow around them." She reached into her satchel and pulled out a folded scrap of cloth. It was the map she'd buried. I stared. "How?" "I buried a decoy," she said, smiling faint. "Old bark and die. Would have fooled a greedy man." I blinked, then chuckled, then laughed full, felt it in my chest for the first time in what felt like years. "You Apache women," I said, shaking my head. "You fight with more than bullets." She leaned back, eyes glinting. "We've had to." That night, I dreamed of the Salt River again, but this time I wasn't drowning. I was floating. And somewhere on the shore, a shadow waited, my old self maybe, or someone I might yet be. When I woke, the fire was down to coals and the world felt still, like it was waiting on a decision. Sani sat beside me, holding the real map in her lap. "We ride west tomorrow," she said. "There's an elder in San Xavier who can keep this safe. From there I'll go south." "And me?" I asked. She looked at me long, like she was measuring something deep. "You've done more than you owed," she said. "But if you want to keep walking beside me, I won't stop you." It was the closest thing to an invitation I'd had in years. I nodded once. "I ride with you." 2 days' ride brought us to San Xavier del Bac, a mission church carved from white stone and ghost stories, standing proud against a desert that don't bow to nothing. The bells in the tower hadn't rung in years, but the shadows still stretched long, like the place remembered how. We arrived at dusk. The church doors were open, lanterns flickering soft in the archways. Sani walked ahead, quiet, shoulders squared. I stayed a step behind, my side still sore, rifle slung across my back more out of habit than need. Inside, the air was cool and smelled of dust and old prayers. A man waited at the altar, gray-haired, wrapped in a faded blanket, face lined like desert stone. "Elon," Sani said. The old man turned, and the way he looked at her, like a piece of the world he thought lost had just walked in. That told me he was kin, even if not by blood. "You made it," he said. His voice cracked like old wood. "And with the map?" She nodded, reached into her coat, pulled out the real thing, handed it over like it weighed 100 pounds. He held it with both hands, eyes closed. "This is more than a trail," he said. "It's memory. It's survival." He turned to me then. "You helped her." "I owed a debt," I said. He nodded. "Then you've paid it, many times over." But that weren't the end of it. Outside, hoofs stirred the earth. Not many, just one horse. We stepped onto the mission porch and saw him, Jack Hollis, alone, hat in hand, arm bandaged, lip still bruised from our last meeting. He dismounted slow, left his pistol holstered. "I ain't here to fight," he called. Sonny's hand twitched near her knife, but she didn't move. "I came to say it's done," Hollis said. "I got men who think I'm a fool for letting you live. Investors who want the map. But I'm tired. This land don't want to be owned." He stepped forward, slow, laid a sack on the stone step. "Gold," he said. "Enough to buy passage. Or silence. Whatever you want." Sonny didn't even glance at it. "You can keep your gold," she said. "And your guilt." He looked at me. "And you? What do you do now?" I shook my head. "Reckon I'll follow the trail a little longer." He stared at us both, then laughed, dry and cracked. "Maybe you're the smart ones after all." He turned, climbed onto his horse, and rode off into the dust. We didn't stop him, not because he deserved peace, but because sometimes leaving a man to live with his choices is the crueler justice. That night, Elon placed the map inside a stone reliquary, sealed with pitch and sand, blessed with a chant I didn't understand but felt deep in my chest. He buried it beneath the mission floor, where only the light from the stained glass could touch it. "No more blood," he said. "No more greed." I stood outside as the stars came out, leased into the desert breathe. Sonny joined me, her eyes soft. "You could go now," she said. "Could," I agreed. "But you won't." I shook my head. "Not unless you tell me to." She smiled just a flicker. "Then come morning, we ride south. My people still have hills to guard." I looked to the horizon. There was no gold waiting there. No glory. Just the road. And her. And for once, that felt like enough. We left San Xavier at sunrise, heading south through a stretch of country that hadn't seen much foot traffic in decades. The trails were narrow, the brush stubborn, and the only company we kept was the buzz of flies and the occasional hawk wheeling overhead. Sonny said we were bound for Black Pass, a narrow canyon guarded by ancient petroglyphs and old magic. Her people had once used it to slip between the ridgelines, carrying messages, food, hope. Now, it was little more than a memory, one she intended to reclaim. "Why there?" I asked as we crested a rocky bluff. "Because it's forgotten," she said. "And sometimes, forgotten things survive longer than remembered ones." I liked the sound of that. By mid-morning, the wind picked up. Cold, like it was trying to turn us back. The sky turned a shade of slate, and the birds went quiet. That's when we found the bodies. 2 of them. Apache scouts. Young. Throat slit, boots stripped. Left face down in a dry wash like they didn't matter. Sonny dropped to her knees beside him. Said nothing at first. Just closed their eyes and touched her fingers to their brows. "They were watching the pass," she said. "You think it was Hollis?" "No," she said. "These men weren't Searchin. They were waiting. Protecting it." I looked around, felt the back of my neck itch. "Then who did this?" She stood, and for the first time, her eyes burned like embers. "Someone worse." That night, we camped at the mouth of Black Pass. I kept my rifle close, every snap of the fire sounding too loud. Sonny set stones in a circle, painted symbols and ash around the camp. When I asked, she said they were wards, protection from things that walk without sound. "Spirits?" I asked. "Men," she said. "Sometimes there's no difference." The wind carried voices that night. Not words, just sound. Like breath held too long. I didn't sleep much. Neither did she. Come morning, we entered the pass. The walls rose high on either side, black with volcanic rock. Carvings etched deep showed figures hunting, dancing, falling into stars. The trail wound like a snake's spine, tight and twisted. Halfway through, we heard it. Hoofbeats. But not fast. Not loud. Just slow. Deliberate. Then came the crows. First one, then a dozen, landing on the rocks above, watching. Quiet as monks at a funeral. Sonny stopped. Her voice dropped to a hush. We're being tracked. How many? She didn't answer. That's when the shot rang out. It hit the stone inches from her head. We dove for cover, returning fire blind. The canyon turned to thunder. Dust kicked up. Horses screamed. And I caught a glimpse of a rider. A pale hat. Black duster. Long rifle. Not Hollis. Someone leaner. Meaner. Another shot came close. Clipped my sleeve. They're trying to box us in. I shouted. Sonny nodded. Then we go up. We scrambled up the canyon wall, finned in holes between twisted roots and eroded ledges. Bullets chewed the stone behind us, but we didn't stop. Couldn't. At the top, breathing hard, we dropped behind a boulder. Below us, the riders regrouped, 4 of them. Faces covered, rifles ready. The leader looked up. His eyes met mine. He tipped his hat, and I knew him. His name was Decker. Used to ride for the Union as a scout. Turned mercenary after Appomattox. Word was he hunted for pay, and didn't care who he bled. Now he was hunting us. I looked at Sonny. We got 2 choices, I said. We run, or we make a stand. She checked her knife. I'm tired of running. So was I. We laid low, waiting for them to climb. And when they did, we'd be ready. They came just after sun passed its peak. Shadows stretching, long through the canyon like bony fingers. Decker led him slow, rifle slung low, boots crunching, on shale with a hunter's patience. He weren't in no hurry. Thought he had us cornered. He was wrong. Sonny and I lay flat on the high ridge, the kind of overlook a hawk might favor. She had 2 knives. I had my rifle and 5 good rounds. We fire on your word, I said. She nodded once, calm as ever, but her jaw was set like iron. When Decker stepped beneath our perch, I breathed deep and squeezed the trigger. The shot cracked like a whip, hit one of his men clean in the collarbone, dropped him cold. The others scattered, firing back up at the ridge, but they didn't have the angle. Dust flew. Lead sparked off stone. Sonny moved before they could regroup, slid down the left flank like a wraith, vanishing between outcroppings. I kept up the fire, dropping a second man as he tried to circle wide. That's when Decker called out, Barnes, you still got a death wish, or just lost your damn sense of distance. His voice echoed hard off the canyon. You always did pick the wrong side. I shouted back. You always did pick lost causes. He barked. That's when Sonny struck. She came out of the rocks behind Decker's third man, cut him quiet, quick. By the time Decker turned, she was already moving. He drew fast, quicker than I remembered. Got a shot off that grazed her side. She stumbled but stayed on her feet, sloshing at him. He blocked with his rifle, shoved her back. I jumped down the ridge. Landed bad. My knee twisted sharp, but I pushed forward, shouting her name. Decker turned his rifle toward me. Too slow. Sonny's blade caught his wrist, blood flying in an arc like a comet. He dropped the gun, cursed loud. I hit him full force. We tumbled into the dust, fist swinging. He was strong, cruel, dirty. Bit my shoulder, elbowed my ribs. I headbutt him, dazed him long enough to grab his collar and slam him into the ground. He laughed through bloodied teeth. You don't get it, he spat. That map's worth more than 100 lives. You think you're protecting her, protecting some cause? All you're doing is stalling the tide. I reared back to hit him again, but Sonny stepped in, laying a hand on my arm. No, she said. He's not worth another scar. She looked down at Decker, eyes like ash and storm clouds. You tell your buyers, she said, voice like stone. The trail is dead. The land won't sell. And the spirits remember. Decker didn't laugh now. He just lay there, breathing hard. I stood slow, shoulder screaming, leg burning. Sonny offered her arm. We left Decker in that canyon, under the watchful eyes of the stone guardians, bleeding into the dirt. We rode out of Black Pass at dusk. The trail opened wide, rolling into a sea of golden grass and soft wind. We didn't talk for a long while. Didn't need to. We reached a bluff overlooking a dry basin where mesquite trees twisted like dancers. She stopped her horse, looked out. "This is where I'm going," she said. "Not much there," I said. "There will be," she replied. "A home. A start." I nodded. "You'll need help." She smiled just a little. "I know someone with a stubborn streak and a rifle." I tipped my hat. "I reckon he'll ride beside you." That night, we made camp beneath a sky black and endless. Coyotes sang somewhere far off. The fire danced low. Sonny leaned against my shoulder. "You ever think about what might have happened if you'd shut that door the night I knocked?" I looked into the fire. "Yeah," I said, "and it still keeps me up." She laughed soft. Then she whispered, "Thank you." I didn't answer, just took her hand, and held it like it was the first warm thing I'd known in years. Spring came late that year, dragging its heels across the high desert like a tired drifter. The rains were sparse but clean, the kind that washed just enough dust off a place to remind you it can bloom again. Me and Sonny built a cabin on the bluff above the basin. Nothing fancy, just hand-cut timbers and stone hauled up from the riverbed. She picked a spot where the mesquite grew in a half-circle, like the land was already willing to make room. We worked in silence most days, speaking only when the hammer missed or the rope slipped. But the quiet was good, the kind that held peace instead of ghosts. There were times I caught her looking out east, toward the mountains. I reckon she was listening. For voices, for warnings, for memories. But they didn't come. And that, I suppose, was a kind of grace. By midsummer, we had a roof that didn't leak and walls strong enough to hold out the wind. A little garden out back, a creek nearby, a fire that didn't flicker with fear. I started keeping a journal, just scratches in a book, thoughts I didn't want to forget. First page, I wrote, "A poor Apache woman knocked at midnight, said she'd reward me." She did. She gave me a reason to stay. One evening, just before sundown, we got a visitor. A rider came up the trail. Not fast, not hostile, just steady. Sonny met him at the gate, her blade never far from reach. He tipped his hat, showed no weapons. "I was sent by Elon," he said, "from San Xavier. He told me there was a place here for those with nowhere left." Sonny nodded. "There is." We put him up in the barn. Next week, 2 more came, a woman with a burned scar down her arm, and an old man who used to ride with the Pony Express. Then a family. Then another. Within a season, there were 6 shelters dotting the basin. A forge. A well. A schoolhouse Sonny insisted we build with the first stack of good lumber. She called it Nahadi, the place where roots wake. I just called it home. Sometimes the past came knocking. A bounty man here, a speculator there, but they never made it far. Decker, as far as I heard, took a bullet down near Santa Fe after crossing the wrong rancher. Hollis faded into the cracks of Yuma, last seen gambling with ghosts. And that map? Still under San Xavier, still guarded, but forgotten now, because the trail it marked didn't lead to gold. It led to her, to us. On the first anniversary of the night she'd knocked, we sat on the porch watching the stars blink awake. She turned to me, that old flicker in her eyes. "You remember what I said?" "Let me in," I said. "I'll reward you." She smiled. And did I? I looked at her, at the home, at the land, at the peace that had grown from all that pain. "Every day," I said. Then I took her hand, and the wind carried a whisper across the porch, a promise made good, a knock that saved 2 souls, and a story worth every scar.